Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Integrity Systems State and Territory webinar series for South Australia. Thanks for joining us tonight. A few housekeeping rules before we get into all the content. Just so you're aware, tonight's webinar is recorded, and we'll be sending out a recording of this to all registrants in the coming week. Along with the information pack and some other resources, and any questions and answers that may have been submitted during the registration process and during tonight's webinar. On that note, if you did submit any registration questions, we'll get those answered in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen throughout the webinar. And if you do have any questions for Integrity Systems or the South Australia Department of Ag, tonight is a really good opportunity to drop those in the chat box below in that Q&A section. So feel free to drop all your questions down in there. On that note, we'll jump into the agenda for tonight's webinar. I'm Xander Bennett, by the way. I'm a communications officer here with Integrity Systems Company, and I'll be facilitating your webinar tonight. For tonight's agenda, I'll be running through a few items as an introduction, giving a little reminder on Integrity Systems Company, who we are and what we do, before handing it over to Elizabeth Bradley, who is our Manager of Quality Policy and Compliance here at IC. And she'll be providing a bit of an update on everything LPA over the last 6 months or so. So she'll be providing a bit of an update on sharing geolocations for the EU deforestation requirement. She'll be touching on the new animal welfare management plan and everything that's involved with that, and speaking to the harvested Rangeland Goat program and everything new that's happening there. We'll then be hearing from John Asmus, who's our Digital Product Manager here at Integrity Systems Company, who will be providing an update on the eNVD system. He's got a few exciting developments that he's been working on, along with the rest of the team over the last 6 months and into the next few months around the web pick search, as well as the eNVD NLIS integration, adding devices there. So he'll be giving us a bit of a look into what he's been working on there over the last little while, which is exciting. We'll then be hearing from myself about little sheep and goat eID update, partially from myself and partially a bit later from Denise, before I pass it on to Natasha Teddy, who will be providing a project update on the rebuild of the NLIS Database, the NLIS Database Uplift Project, before John also gives us a bit of a look into what the new database, the uplifted database, is going to look like when it's launched in about 12 months' time. And then, yes, we'll be hearing from Denise Rendell, who's the Senior NLIS Officer at the Department of Primary Industries and Regions for South Australia, who'll be providing that state partner date. But without dragging on too long there, I'll jump into a bit of a reminder of IC, who we are and what we do in the Australian red meat integrity system. So IC, we're responsible for the 2 key assurance and traceability programs in Australia. That is the NLIS, or National Livestock Identification System, which is the system that we use to trace livestock from property to property and throughout the supply chain, in case there's an emergency disease outbreak, and for that market assurance, both domestically and internationally, for the traceability piece. And we also manage the Livestock Production Assurance program, which is our on-farm assurance program nationwide that focuses in on biosecurity, animal welfare, and food safety. And those 2 programs joined there by the National Vendor Declaration, or eNVD. And all of this ties in to increase and maintain our market access, both domestically and internationally, to make sure that our product is meeting customer expectations and that we continue to provide that safe, quality red meat that our customers know and love. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Elizabeth Bradley, who will be providing the Livestock Production Assurance update. Go for it, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Xander, and hi everyone. Tonight I'm going to be talking to you about some exciting things we've been doing with the Livestock Production Assurance Program, or LPA for short. So bear with me as I walk you through some of these initiatives. So we're going to run through the requirements around the EU's deforestation regulation that impacts not only EU cattle producers, but all cattle producers. We'll talk around the brand new requirement to have an animal welfare management plan through your LPA accreditation, and a short segment on the harvested rangeland goat module within LPA as well. Lots of exciting things happening and lots of pain, but first off the bat tonight we'll talk around the new European Union's deforestation regulation, or EUDR for short. If you love acronyms like we do, that's what that one means. So the EUDR is a bit of a funny regulation. It applies to beef products and leather and hides that get imported into the EU and put on the market for sale from the 31st of December this year. What that means for Australia, especially our cattle producers, is that we have to meet some more requirements or provide some more information for those imports to continue and make sure we can sell that product into that market. The EU market for Australia is high value. So it's about $150 million a year from the beef exported to the EU, and another $50 million from the leather. So it's an important market for us. It is separate and in addition to the European Union Cattle Accreditation Scheme, or the UCAS program, that's administered by DAF, and that one looks at the hormone freedom and the lifetime traceability for beef that's going into the EU. So this new regulation is around deforestation and making sure that where cattle have been raised and kept their whole life, none of those properties have been subject to illegal deforestation or forest degradation since the 31st of December 2020. That might sound overwhelming, but I promise you what as a producer you need to do isn't that overwhelming. Part of the regulation is around providing the importer that's located in the EU a list of geolocations that represents where those animals have been. So in order to do that, we've utilised our really great systems in NLIS and LPA to be able to give that data to importers in a very secure way. So for a producer, it just means simply logging into LPA and sharing your geolocation that represents your property. And then through the NLIS system, processors and feedlots who help with that export and market access requirement with the importer can retrieve those geolocations through the system. So it's really simple. As a cattle producer, we're recommending everyone jump in and do it. So the key being that leather and hides can come from any animal, not just those in the EU program. So even if you're not EU, it's still important to share in case your hides, end up as a Gucci bag or something like that in the future. Effectively through your LPA program account, you can log in into the program section. There's lots of prompts on the screens when you log in to show you where to go. You effectively pin your geolocation that represents your property. And that's just a single point that represents a spot on your property, and that permissions that into NLIS so we can then share it through the supply chain. If you have multiple properties all under one pick, just pick one spot that kind of best represents where you kind of graze. That's fine. And if you have multiple picks, you'll have to pin multiple locations on each pick as well. But it is required for exports that land in the EU from the 31st of this year. So effectively, the cattle are kind of coming off feed now to get processed very soon, and then they'll be on the water and headed over there shortly. So it's a big push to get those geolocations in the system so we can provide that on through the process. We're not assessing the deforestation requirement. That's on the importer to kind of check that and make sure they're happy with it. The good thing about this is that the EU has classified Australia as low risk. So that means they check less consignments that we send over there. but it is still part of that process. And it's all about them trying to reduce deforestation and improve biodiversity globally. It impacts every single country in the world that imports or exports to the EU. So it's not just us in this basket, but we are well placed to respond to it. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but we're at the coalface and we can do it. So just a little bit about that. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A. But moving on, we'll talk around the new requirement in LPA to have an animal welfare management plan. So this animal welfare management plan requirement's been in the program since the 23rd of July, so very recently, just over 2 months. It's all around strengthening our transparency and assurance in relation to animal welfare on farm. So previously in LPA, you had to have access to the animal welfare standards, complete some training, and make sure that you're aware of those standards. So this animal welfare management plan is taking it just that little bit step further in asking you how you meet those standards on your property. So it's all around demonstrating how your on-farm practices meet those standards, and it's mostly all common sense things that you do all day, every day already. The requirement comes with the delivery of a tool to help you complete this plan, to make sure that it was simple, straightforward, and balance the robustness of the actual assurance with the simplicity of making sure that it wasn't too difficult to complete. The animal welfare management plan is based on the animal welfare standards and guidelines. So the guidelines and standards are the documents that sit at a national level to harmonise how welfare happens for cattle, sheep and goats. They cover general responsibilities, they cover feed and water, risk management, facilities, specific husbandry procedures. So all of those things are covered in each of the documents, which you should have access to as part of your LPA accreditation already. The tool itself actually shows you the standards that are relevant for your species, and it asks you a series of questions before it jumps into it to make sure that you're not asked questions that aren't relevant to your operation. So if you have cattle, you'll only be asked questions about cattle. And as you walk through the tool, it actually asks you what husbandry practices you undertake, which means that you'll only have to answer questions about those husbandry practices and not have to go through the ones that aren't applicable to you. So it tries to make it as streamlined as possible, because we know that everyone loves paperwork, but we want to minimise that cost of compliance and maximise your time. It presents you with the standard to read, and then it asks you a simple question around how you meet that standard. There's a mix of questions that talk about how you do things and provides answers based on the guidance, so you can collect multiple options, or it asks for you to write something in, just a short, succinct kind of explanation of how you do things. There's guidance embedded in the tool as well, so you can click a little information button and get some help if you're not quite sure how to answer the question. It is part of accreditation moving forward, so if you don't jump on and do it now through your LPA account, next time you complete reaccreditation, it will be automatically added to your questions that you get asked. So it's everyone will do one in the next sort of 2 years, and it's really about building that trust and showcasing how well we do welfare here in Australia. Just a quick note, we had maybe some misinformation going around this animal welfare management plan tool, and we just wanted to reiterate that we don't have any restrictions on the use of working dogs. We know how important they are to livestock production. The animal welfare management tool does ask questions around how you appropriately handle animals, and the animal welfare standards for sheep actually talk around appropriate use of dogs, and there's no restriction on that. It's just we wanted to clear the air and make sure that you understand that it's in there, but there's no restriction on it. And if you do use dogs, you can simply say that you do, and that's all there is to it. So just to clear the air in terms of that one, we love our puppy dogs here as well. Now, in terms of transitioning, so we understand that everyone needs time to, take the time to go and do it and make sure that it's in place. So we are transitioning producers over time through the accreditation process. We do undertake about 4,000 audits a year though. So from the 1st of September, if you are having an LPA audit, you'll be prompted in your letter to make sure that you know that you have to do the animal welfare management plan. And then if you don't have it in time for the audit, it's not a big stress. You get a little bit more time after that audit to jump in and do that plan and complete it as part of that audit process. So you can jump in and do it at any time. That the record keeping function is there for you to go and complete the plan through your LPA account, or as I said, if you haven't done it by the time you next complete accreditation, it will automatically be part of that process for you. In relation to harvested rangeland goats, there is a large portion of harvested rangeland goat properties in South Australia. Effectively, this is a continuation of the ability to move these harvested rangeland goats without tagging them. So from the 1st of January 25, we've got the transition to eID for sheep and goats. So this pathway was developed to make sure that those harvested rangeland goats can continue to move without a device. It comes with an accreditation module in LPA. It comes with a brand new NVD for those goats specifically, and also updates to the regular goat NVD as well. So it's really strengthening the assurance around the pathway to make sure that we can trace these goats from the point of capture as well. In terms of what a harvested rangeland goat is, they are captured from a wild state. They're not born as a result of a managed breeding program, and they can't have had any animal husbandry procedures or treatments. So it's pretty specific. So they actually have to be those, harvested goats from a wild state that just roam around that you happen upon. They have a specific pathway that they can move. So they can only move from capture to an abattoir for slaughter, or they can go via one registered goat depot. So it's very strict in terms of which way they can go without a tag. And that's to make sure that we can trace them and that their time from capture through to processing is very limited. So, goat depots can only hold them for about 10 days. So the time frame in which these goats can be captured and held without tags is quite short. If you do capture goats and you manage them in any way, then they need to be tagged because they're no longer eligible as well. If you do use a registered goat depot or involved in any one of them, they have specific requirements about how long they can hold them for, when they need to tag them, and where they can actually send the tag-free or device-free goats as well. I mentioned before there's new NVDs or NVD changes around these. So if you do have goats or in the harvested rangeland goat kind of industry, the harvested rangeland goat NVD is new. You need to use it if you capture those goats and you're sending them to the goat depots or direct to slaughter. And if you're consigning any other goats, they have to go on the regular goat NVD. And there is a new version of that, which the old version is no longer valid from the 1st of July. So make sure that you've got the right version. The eNVD always has the most up-to-date and current version of the NVDs, which is free to use. So you can look to use that if you don't want to buy another NVD book. But that is the NVD requirements. Again, if you have any questions about anything that I've had a chat about tonight, please feel free to put them in the Q&A and we can get to them tonight. But that's me. I'll stop talking and hand you over to John to talk around eNVD web improvements. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Sorry that I just had a bit of a computer malfunction to trying to get off mute, but hopefully you guys can hear me now. As Xander mentioned, I'm the Digital Product Manager at ISC. We are in charge of looking at all the changes and updates to all three of the products that ISC are managing at this moment. So that includes eNVD. So my little segment here is just to really highlight a couple of the web improvements that we've put into eNVD over the last couple of months, and also some of the initiatives that we're looking at to introduce into eNVD in the coming months coming up. Next slide, thanks. So yeah, as I mentioned, we have a continued focus on eNVD to improve the areas that we see are common pain points from customer feedback, and also trying to make it as simple as we can as an option to go to for movements of animals across the supply chain. Two areas that we've been looking at. The first one that we implemented a couple of months ago is integrating with NLIS a little bit better. And what does that mean? I'll go through a short demo to kind of clearly articulate that. But what we're trying to get to here is to make that process of doing movements and the necessary compliance obligations with NLIS a little bit easier for the users. So if you're doing movements onto your property as a feedlot or a property-to-property transfer, we recognise that the information that you're putting into movements is very similar to the information that NLIS requires. So it made sense to integrate those a little bit closer. And what you can do now is log into eNVD and with your linked NLIS account, do that movement within NLIS without having to log into that separate system. So hopefully making that process a little bit more seamless for you guys. The other area that we're also looking at, and this is also due to feedback, is the improving the ability to find the destination picks. We understand that everyone knows their own pick, but doesn't necessarily know the pick number of where they're sending their stock to. So at the moment, it's a little bit of a challenge due to different data sets coming through from all the state departments across Australia to build a nice effective search functionality. So what we're doing is looking at changing a couple of the filters and opportunities for you guys to select picks that you've used previously and making that process a lot easier for you guys as well, so that it takes out one of those pain points with eNVD. So as I mentioned before, the integrating with eNVD and NLIS is for property transfers and is only available in the web system. We want to look at see how it's being used before we start rolling it out and increasing the scope of that integration. Key benefits, really, as there's two sides to the consignment, we see that the livestock receiver gets the most benefit as they can look at devices that have been added to the consignment. They get early visibility of what those devices are and if there's any kind of warnings or errors associated with those. But also that ability to do, once they're okay with the devices that have been added to the consignment, do the necessary P2P movement within NLIS just by doing one button within eNVD, and I'll show that in the demo a little bit later. The other advantage, obviously, from a livestock centered perspective, is that once you add those devices to the eNVD, we do a quick check against NLIS and play back any of those errors or warnings that we can pick up at that point. So that gives you early visibility of if there's a bad read from a device, if the device that you're intending on sending is not on your pick currently, or if you're adding in a different species to what the movement is. So we can play those back. You can resolve them before you send the consignment, saving a little bit of time and hassle negotiating with the receiver if there's some questions about that consignment when it's received. So what I'll do is just do a quick demo of some nice simple scenarios so you get an idea of how we are doing that within NLIS. So I'll just share my screen. So as you can see here, this is the web-based platform for eNVD. And what I'll do is I'll just create a consignment and we can see what it means, this new integration feature from the sender and receiver's perspective. So what I'll do is I'll create a new consignment and I will, for ease of use, I will do it via a template. Sorry, my mouse is not really responding today. And the quickest way to do a consignment is create a template, and you can see that it's just like a few short, simple steps to do that. So I'll select this one, which is a sheep consignment, and it will, it's a sheep consignment. And what I didn't need to do is just put in, I've already filled in all the details about the answers on the eNVD. Sorry about this. And then all I need to do is just edit the details of what I'm sending. So I can put in the number of head and also the number of head with the ear tag. Fill out the declaration, submit the consignment, and then I'll be ready to put the devices on there. Okay, so what we can see here is that there's a new banner here in terms of starting off that consignment. So all I need to do to add the devices is click on this button. And we have two options. One is to upload a file or add them manually. For this demonstration, we can upload a file and we'll take most of the common reader outputs to do that. So I just simply choose the file that I have saved. And then it processes the request. As you can see, we do a quick check against NLIS, and if I scroll down, you can see that we haven't picked up any issues with these devices that I've loaded. So what we need to do is I'll show you from a receiver's perspective what that means. So if we go back to consignments, I can just switch the profile to the receiver of this consignment, and you can see that this incoming consignment is here, and it's had tags added, and so I can have a look at what that means. So I can view the devices that have been added as a receiver, and I have full visibility of those tags that have been loaded. At this stage, what I need to draw your attention to is this banner at the top here. For you to be able to facilitate the movement and do that movement within NLIS, you need to switch your account to the profile to your NLIS account. If you haven't linked your LPA and NLIS account, we have plenty of collateral around how to do that. And there's a link embedded in this page to do that. But if you do not change your profiles, you won't be able to do anything with this consignment. So to just finish this quick demonstration off, we just go back to consignments and I'll show you how to switch your profile. You go up to this box on the left. We go down to pick the NLIS account that's associated with this LPA profile, which is this one. And then if we go over here to pick the same consignment, you can see that I have an option to complete the NLIS movement. So if I select on that, it shows the same information as I scroll down. But the difference here is that I have the move onto my pick. So I just need to get the mouse down to there. Sorry about this. And then it'll process my request. It'll play back that movement has been submitted. And and you'll just get the same notifications that you do in current state. You'll get a notification from NLIS saying that that transfer has taken place. So the other thing that we're doing within eNVD is also, as I mentioned, is talking about the PIC search. We've found through our user feedback that that the users like the ability to be able to filter, whether it be by state, by PIC type, to find that information. And as you can see up on the screen, we've taken that pattern from the app that has that ability. So once the user can filter by the state or PIC type, and then put in the town or the suburb that PIC might be in, more often than not, you'll get presented with the correct information and be able to select the PIC from the options that are given to you. So what we're trying to do here is then apply that same pattern to within the web platform and extend it a little bit to show some better options to the user and make it a little bit easier to find that destination PIC. So just in terms of what that means within eNVD, I've just got a quick demonstration to be able to do that. So what we're trying to do here is just play back some options to the user. So the three options that we're trying to show here, and I'll probably have to maybe call time on this because my mouse is not playing ball tonight, but I'll just talk through it without being able to show that. But we have three options. One is showing the last 10 destinations that your user has been used before. So you'll be able to replay those ones. And if you use the same PIC over and over again, you'll be able to select that. You'll still be able to search via PIC. As it's shown up here. So if you still know the PIC number, you'll still be able to use that. And then the third option is that you have some details. And on the right there, we can show, you can filter by state, by PIC type, add in the town or suburb, and then that will present a list for you to be able to clearly pick the destination that you're interested in and the correct one. So I think that's it from for me. Thanks for your attention.
Great stuff, John. Looks really good. Can't wait to see what how that all looks over the next 6 months as it's all implemented. And apologies everyone about the some of those technical troubles John's having there, the dangers of presenting live. But just quickly before I move into a quick sheep and goat eID update. Just a reminder that there is that Q&A box down the bottom there, and if you did have any questions about any of the content that you're seeing tonight, or more broadly about Integrity Systems Company or PIRSA, do drop those in. It's a good opportunity to have those questions answered. But moving into a couple of reminders for the mandatory rollout of sheep and goat eID. This is just a reminder that from Jan 1 this year, 2025, all newborn sheep and goats born on your property do have to have that eID, that electric ID device. And then from Jan 1, 2027, that's all livestock nationally, regardless of age, have to have that eID before leaving your property. And that was a state and territory government and industry initiative to improve the emergency disease response, that rollout of eID. So just a reminder of those dates there when you're tagging. And another quick reminder of the tags or devices that we're putting in. Good reminder that all devices that you're using are species specific. So not putting goat devices in sheep or vice versa. There are goat-specific devices for goats and sheep-specific devices for sheep. And you can identify those by the species code that appears on the NLIS ID that's printed on the outside of the tag or device. For sheep, breeder tags, that's an S, and post-breeder, it's T. And then for goats, the breeder tags, it's K, and post-breeder is L. And when you're ordering those tags, it'll either be through a manufacturer, and just to ensure that you've got your pick handy for when you're ordering those. And then, of course, moving on to your NLIS transfers, a quick reminder that it is always the receiver's responsibility to be submitting those property-to-property transfers in the NLIS. If you're moving livestock to sale yards, feedlots, processors, typically they will complete that transfer for you. But if you're selling, property to property, or online through Auctions Plus or other platforms, as the receiver, it's your responsibility to make that transfer. And always good practice, if you're sending livestock, you can actually go in and do that transfer yourself if you want to be making sure that your pick is kept tidy and up to date on the NLIS database, and always recording that upload ID when you've completed the transfer, in case you're audited or anything of the like. Denise, I think we'll be touching a bit on this as well a bit later on, but if you do have any trouble or want to do a bit more learning, there are lots of good resources online on the Integrity Systems company website, on the Sheep and Goat Traceability Task Force website. There's some good resources there, and PIRSA will have some really good resources on their website as well, covering off all of this. But on that note, I'll pass it off to Natasha to give the NLIS Database Uplift project update.
Thank you, Xander. Yes, so we're talking about the NLIS Database Uplift Project. Now, why we're sort of raising it here in the webinars is that all the testing that we've done and inquiry, and also through the survey that you guys completed when you were asking questions, we're getting a clear guidance that a lot of people are unaware that we're actually uplifting the database. So what does that mean for you? It'll be a new database with a new look and feel. So we're wanting to get the message out. If you're talking, once we get through this presentation, if you're talking to your neighbours, or you're at the kids' school sport, or you're at the pub, just tell people about it, because we're trying to get the message out there that it will be changing in the next 12 months. So let's reflect on the current database system. You know, it was the year 2000. We were all freaking out about Y2K and what was going to happen to our money, and we were sitting there waiting as the new millennium started. We were busy playing Snake on our Nokia 3310, the most up-to-date phone at the time. They'd call it a stupid phone, but it was pretty flash when you had one then. So that was the year 2000. And that was when the NLIS was released. So it's been around for about 25 years, and it has served Australian red meat admirably right through that whole period. It's been a global leader of its time, and it basically has allowed Australia to lead the globe in traceability and biosecurity. So why do we need a new one if it's so good? Well, it is the key to protecting market access and food safety for Australia, especially in its defence against exotic diseases. It's quite outdated now. It's a bit like me. It's using a lot more hair dye, and it's probably a bit past its highest point of performance. We're building it for the future, so future-proofing livestock traceabilities for decades to come. We're looking to improve the user experience and making the system easier for producers, regulators, and industry to use the system. The core purpose and functionality is with a modernised, secure infrastructure. As we know, in the year 2025, which we didn't have in the year 2000, we've got a lot of cyber nasties out there that are trying to access systems and cause problems, whether it's banking or key infrastructure like red meat processing. So it's really important that that infrastructure has increased security. And we're also tracking towards a 30th of June 2026 with the support of a funding grant from the Australian government. So what will it help with? You know, we reckon that you guys really don't want to be spending a lot of time on compliance and regulation. And we believe that increasing traceability will be increased due to the ease of using the new system. Simplified processes to get that job done quickly. So in the current system, when you're looking for things, there's lots of drop-down menus and lots of different places where you can find to do things. We're trying to make that easier and quicker to find what you need to do. Also, you know, back in the day, the file sizes weren't as big as they are now. As data becomes more valuable and more useful, we're uploading larger files. For example, as a tag manufacturer, they might be putting about 1 million line files into the system as they're uploading tags into the database. And we want to make it quicker and easy and more efficient for you to access the data that you need. Improve the data quality and maintain that data quality more effectively. Easier for integrations as we look at different systems like Outcross and AgriNows and AgriWeb. They're all wanting to integrate into NLIS to, again, make your life easier. So we have to make it easier for external systems to integrate into NLIS. And as I've mentioned, you know, that data is safe now, but we want to keep the pressure on and improve the security and maintain that up-to-dateness of working with the best software and services that are available to protect your important data, and provide better reporting and analytics. At the moment, there's quite a few different reports that are a bit harder to get at to. We've sort of broken those down to more simplified reporting so that you can get the information you need easier. So this has been a 3-year journey, and a lot of people don't know that it's taken us 3 years to get this thing sorted and organised to be built. So it started back in July 23, and that was when they were thinking about what is needed from a new NLIS database. And where we are now is we're right smack bang in the middle of the build, getting everything sorted to make sure that we can do the things that we need to, that the our vendor understands the way that the system works and how sometimes you can do this, but you can't do that, and understanding how the different rules talk to the system. So that's all happening at the moment. And now John's got a new mouse. I will hand over to him because I think it's really exciting when you actually get to see and compare the current database with the future look and feel of the new one. John, I'll hand over to our guru, John.
Thanks, Natasha. I was giving my computer a kick and it seems to be complying now. So hopefully this one will go a bit better. So yeah, as Natasha said, you know, we've done a lot of consultation with a lot of different members of the supply chain and producers like yourselves to get an understanding of how we can design the new system and make it a little bit easier for you guys to understand, knowing that, you know, the easier it is to use, the more compliance activities we get put in there, which benefits everyone. So as you can see, like, this is probably the interface that you're used to now. And it's been the face of NLIS, as Natasha said, for the last 20 odd years. So it's not the easiest thing to kind of work out what you need to do. You need to make a lot of clicks to ultimately get the result that you're after. So what we're moving to and what we're building to now is a new version, which is hopefully a lot more intuitive, takes out a little bit of the guesswork in terms of what you need to do, and focusing on that kind of consistency and that ease of use through the whole system. The landing page that I'm showing you here is what we see the entry point for most people. And I'll just quickly go through the key concepts that we're trying to play back to the user here. It starts off with playing back the pick that you're operating on, calling out any statuses that are applied to that, any of the programs that you're part of, the species that you're interacting with. As we move down the page, this is kind of where we want people to interact with the most. We have two ways of playing back, what you want to do with the system. The first is the search bar here, and this just operates like a search bar that you use in other web-based platforms. It has the ability to kind of search by categories, and I'll just use the example. You may have a transaction ID. You've done a movement a few weeks ago, and you just want to see what was done, or you have some reference that you're interested in. So we can just select transaction ID, put that ID in there, do a search, and then it'll quickly come back with any of the matches around that value that you put in. So you can see that this transaction was done on this date. It's a movement transaction. It was done by this person. And if you need to drill down into more information, you can just quickly view, and it plays back all the information around that. So you can see that it was a movement from this pick to this pick. It was a cattle movement. If there's an eNVD reference or an NVD loaded, we can view that. And then you can also just drill down in terms of the devices that were added on that movement. The second part that we see people interacting with a lot is these quick actions. So this is customized depending on what you do the most. And you have the option to put these four options with big clear cards about what they are. It's probably important to call out that we're using this opportunity to kind of, I suppose, standardize and update the language that we use within NLIS. So you'll see these concepts of movements. So we have multiple different transactions in the current system that represent a movement of stock from one location to another. We're combining them all in one transaction so that it's nice and clear for everyone that you just need to do one type of movement. We also are improving or updating the language around tags. So we're going to call them devices, knowing that there's more than just one type of device used in the current system, and this term is more generic and more fit for purpose as we move into the future. The other big change as well is we're taking around a species dependent language. So the old beast inquiry we're going to uplift in terms of and call it livestock, knowing that there's not just cattle that are tracked through this system. So these are the quick actions. The other bits to call out on the landing page is that we'll summarize the latest movements that are on and off your pick so that they're clear and you can reconcile them back to movements that have happened. And it's just a quick playback to say, okay, that receiver has done that movement off my pick. Or conversely, any movements onto your pick, there's a reminder there that you've done the obligation around any of the compliance around that movement. We can call out high value notifications to you. We're continuing that theme of linking our systems together so we can quickly pay back any incoming or outgoing eNVDs. And then finally, we'll give you a graphical representation of the devices on your pick so that you can see that if the trend is going down, but that you're bringing stock onto your farm, that's a call to action to say, okay, why is that trend going differently to what I know it is, and an investigation to make sure that the necessary movements are being logged within NLIS. So I think that's it. Natasha, thanks.
Thank you so much, John. And it's a lot easier when the mouse works. So you've got the Q&A button down there. Let us know what you think. We're open to feedback on what we've just showed you. So John mentioned that there'd been a lot of consultation done around the new system. So there was 3 rounds of usability concept testing that was done with producers and other supply chain partners to identify what the key needs were, and that's where we came up with the white space, the big buttons, and trying to make it easier for people to do what they need to do on the system. We've also got a high level of governance on the project, so there's a lot of interest in it. We've had a grant from the government, but there's also interest from the industry reference group, states and territories reference group, and then a technical reference committee, and that's full of some of the advisors that are using the software, CTOs and bigger processing companies to help us and provide some advice in that area. So up to date, there's been over 135 hours of engagement with industry reference group alone since March 2024. So you can see that, and the states and territories would even be higher than that. So you can see that we're getting input from the people that matter as we make decisions on your behalf. The other thing to note is that we're attending quite a few events and workshops and trade shows, field days, conferences. We've always got somebody there that can show you and let you see what John has just showed you now. So if you're attending any of these events, come up, have a yarn, talk to us about any questions you might have, but also ask if you can see and have an opportunity to have a look at what it looks like on a laptop. So those opportunities if they're made available to you. So what does this mean for me? I've heard we have some wonderful people, even on this call, that have had years and years of knowledge around the system, and they've put their heart and soul into it. And we know there's a lot of producers out there that feel the same way towards the system, but we recognise it will be a big change, but it's heading us in the right direction. We're not going to let you fly solo. There'll be detailed training plan is currently being developed, and it will be shared soon as it's finalised. We'll be planning to assist producers and industry with how-to guides, more webinars if you want to attend. These ones will be about training on the new system, hands-on demonstrations and examples, and regular updates and opportunities to ask questions. So there'll be a lot of support there. And as per normal, we have our team, our customer service team that will be available on the phone. They're available between 7 and 7 during a weekday and 9 to 5 during the weekends. We've also got a 24/7 chatbot now that's available. You can ask it questions. And our website is full of information that will be able to support you as we transition. So now I'll hand over to the lovely Denise. She's an absolute wealth of knowledge to talk to you about the stats.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out to hear my presentation. If I can go to my first slide, that would be great. Okay, what I'm just going to do is I thought I'd take the time to go through a few reminders now that we're now in the new spring selling season, and to also reinforce some information that has been covered by Elizabeth and Xander. So as of the beginning of this year, any lamb or kid that was born on your property must now be identified with an NLIS accredited electronic tag before or device before it leaves its property. It is really important that these animals, if they're moving off your property, are identified with that electronic device. We don't want to see animals held up because they don't have the right type of identification. The other thing that I want to remind you about is that also from the beginning of this year, if you move any sheep or farmed goats onto your property that are actually identified with an electronic NLIS device, they must be scanned and transferred to your PIC on the NLIS database. And if you do have these animals, older animals that only have visual tags, the visual NLIS tags, you can still do those as a mod-based movement. But anything that has an electronic ID, no matter how old or young it is, it must be scanned and transferred on the NLIS database if you receive it onto your property from another property. Anything you purchase out of the sale yards will get transferred to your PIC by the sale yard operator. The other thing is that sheep and farm goats can only have one electronic tag on in their ears, or if it's a goat with a hock band, one of those. but it's only one. We are finding sheep, particularly with 2 EIDs. Please don't do that. You're wasting your money, and it's very confusing for the system, and it confuses the traceability of the animals that you're consigning. So please ensure that they only have one NLIS accredited electronic device. And if you're not sure if it's an NLIS accredited electronic device, have a look for the logo that you can see in the corner on the screen. It shouldn't have the map of Australia with the letters ID in it. The other thing is that if you're filling out your NVD, it's really useful for the sale yard operators, the agents, the processors, and even other producers. If you can fill out a rough idea of how many animals that you've got in the consignment that have EIDs, it just makes that process of reconciling how many animals have been scanned with what's in the consignment. So if you can do that, that would be greatly appreciated by a lot of sectors throughout the supply chain. And the other one is to reinforce that if you are consigning harvested rangeland goats, you must be using the harvested rangeland goat NVD. There have recently been some consignments that have turned up in abattoirs, and the processors can't actually process them until they have the new NVD. So if you are capturing goats from the wild, then please make sure that you are accredited and that you are using the harvested rangeland goat NVD. So next slide. Thank you. The other reminder is that we still do actually have tag rates, rebates. These have been extended. So there is a point of sale rebate for producers. It's 47.5 cents per device for the current year of birth. So if you go year of birth colour. So if you're going to a reseller or to one of the online resellers and you're buying tags for this year, then you get that 47.5 cents off the device price at the time that you purchase them. If you buy any of the other year of birth colours, so any of the other 7 colours, or you are buying pink post-breeder tags, there is a rebate, but it is one that you will need to apply to PIRSA to obtain this. And for both of these rebates, they do finish on the 30th of June 2027, or if the funding runs out, it might be before then, but hopefully the funding will still be available until that date. Next. The other rebate that we've got is for essential equipment. So this allows producers to purchase some equipment to scan electronic devices so that they can meet their legal responsibilities. So it's basically for producers that are bringing on sheep or farm goats onto their property as a property-to-property movement from another PIC. So whether it's purchased from Auctions Plus, whether it's moving between 2 properties that you own under the same PIC, or you're moving them onto another property for agistment, or you have purchased directly from another property. So this rebate is specifically for equipment for those producers, and there are conditions around it. As you'll see, depending on how many animals you move on annually will depend on how much rebate you get on equipment. The rebate is available for equipment that's purchased after June 8 in 2023, but second-hand equipment is not eligible, and the applications close on the 30th of June for this particular rebate. Just so that you know, there's also rebates for schools and ag shows or field day sites where they bring on sheep for or goats for display, for sheep dog trials or sharing competitions. So there are also equipment rebates for those sectors as well. And we do have some upcoming events. Next week, we also have a more extensive webinar just on the general aspects of the legal responsibilities for producers. And then there are 2 workshops looking at eID, where specifically for how you might use the electronic devices to improve your on-farm production and profitability. So the first one's at Canalpin and the second one is at Kapunda. So if you're interested in attending those, can you please register your interest in those particular workshops, and they will be run on those days with speakers such as Michelle Cousins and Jody Rizet and I've forgotten his name. Oh, no, sorry. And the other event that we'll have a display at is actually the York Peninsula Field Day. So if you're interested in any of those events, please come and we can talk to you about your legal obligations and also any questions you have about using the eID for production and profitability. And next one. And this is a list of contact people that you might wish to discuss the rebates using eID for productivity, or if you've got NLIS queries relating to your obligations in South Australia, then please contact myself or my colleague Tara Vanderloor. And there is a general update on electronic ID on our PIRSA website. So please make use of all of this information or our people in the field. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Denise, and thanks for lending us your time tonight for that presentation. And thanks to all our speakers tonight for their work. Before we wrap up, I'd just like to give you all my top 3 integrity takeaways for the evening. If you do take away anything from tonight's presentation, number 1, if you can jump in and complete your animal welfare management plan when you get the chance, and share your geolocation for that EUDR requirement if it's relevant to your operation. Number 2, we saw before some of the improvements that are being made to the eNVD system that John presented. Jump in and give it a try. Give it a go. That template function is fantastic for quickly and easily making eNVDs. And number 3, keep an eye out for that NLIS database, the uplifted version, over the next 12 months. That's an exciting project that I'm sure will help with Australian compliance. And that's about it for the evening. Thank you very much for giving us your time for the night. Remember to keep an eye out for the recording and information pack that we'll send out by email within the next week or so. That'll have all those resources and the recording and any questions that came through in the chat. And that's about it, I think. Keep an eye out as well for there'll be a survey that should pop up when you log out tonight. If you give us any feedback on tonight's presentation, how we did, if we did well, if we did poorly, we'd love to hear about it. But yeah, thanks very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your night.